I'm Dolores Huerta, president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation for Grassroots Community Organizing. I coined the phrase "Si Se Puede" in 1972. Over the years, "Si Se Puede" has been used by many groups, and President Obama himself translated it to "Yes, we can" in his 2008 campaign. So when my friends Eva Longoria and America Ferrara called me, I said, of course, with everything Latinos are facing, we need to believe She Se Puede right now. Si se puede cambiar este país. We have the power to change our country. Latinas, you and me. This country is yours, and you have the right and the responsibility to take charge of it. This is our moment to show what we are made of. Si se puede, she se puede.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you're having a great day. My name is Monica Ramirez, and I am one of the co-founders of She Se Puede. And we are so thrilled that you have joined us today for our She Se Puede Latinas Make a Difference tour. And we are so excited to be in North Carolina on our tour today. You know, I have to say that video from Dolores, it makes my heart sing every time I hear her speak, and certainly with that message that she gave us today. We're so thrilled that she has been a mentor, and so fortunate that she's been a mentor to many of us over the years, and certainly love that she has shown her support for She Se Puede, which, of course, she's one of our biggest inspirations. So we are here today in this conversation to talk to some incredible Latina leaders who I have been fortunate to know over the years and to work in partnership with their organizations. So we are going to be talking this afternoon about the farm worker community. And the title for today's session is called The Backbone of America, Farm Workers and Farm Worker Families. And here to join me for this conversation are Angeline Echevarria, who is the Executive Director of Pueblo, North Carolina. She is a Student Action with Farmworkers 1999 alum. She's a Ms. Foundation for Women as a Woman of Vision honorary for her work building collective power for reproductive and immigrant rights. Student Action with Farmworkers board member and volunteer. And as I said at the top, she is the Executive Director of El Pueblo, North Carolina. We also have Brittany Wilson with us from NC Field. Brittany is a proud Afro-Latina. She serves as NC Field's communications manager. She's currently studying for a master's in communications from Liberty University. And she also has a bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in public health from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Her professional background is rooted in public health education and health promotion. We have Yuliana Ventura also joining us. She is a current SAF Levantete Leadership Institute member. She is a Student Action with Farmworkers alumni. She was born and raised in Clinton, North Carolina. She's an 18-year-old super senior at the Sampson Early College High School, graduating in May 2021, and she is the proud daughter of parents who were born and raised in Honduras. And rounding out the panel, we have Jennifer Salazar. Jennifer is a Campbell University student and SAF Farmworkers project member. She's also a SAF alumni. So let's bring everyone into the room so we can have this conversation. And let's not forget Maria Gonzalez. Maria, I just wanted to make sure I call you out too. So Maria is the program director of Student Farm Alliance, and she is a Student Action with Farmworkers alumni. So let's bring everybody into the room so we can have this great conversation. And for those of you who are just jumping in, you know that She Se Puede is a lifestyle empowerment platform that we created for Latinas, where we aim to inform, inspire, and empower Latinas so that we can reach our full potential and exercise our full power while we lift up our community. So, are we ready for this conversation? All right. Well, okay, so I did a little intro of each of you, but I think it would be really wonderful for folks who are tuning in to hear from each of you so that we can learn a little bit more about your work, some of what your organizations are doing right now in this particular moment, which we know has been a very intense one for the farm worker community and for all of us around the country. So let's kick it off. Angeline, why don't you start us out? Tell us more about your work.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with such a wonderful panel of strong women. I'm currently the executive director of El Pueblo, and we work with members of the Latinx community here in North Carolina, focusing on leadership development and civic engagement work. And so this is a very busy time for us as we are working to motivate folks who are eligible to vote to participate in the elections this year. North Carolina is a very important state for how our country is going to be moving forward. And then we've also been doing a lot of work to respond to the pandemic, both in terms of advocacy and trying to get elected leaders to support immigrant communities more in pandemic relief, as well as providing some relief through El Pueblo. And I'm really grateful to be here with a bunch of Safistas because my first experiences with social justice work was through SAF. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Angeline. All right, Brittany, tell us more about NC Field and your role there.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Brittany Wilson. I am NC Field's communication manager. I joined NC Field about 1.5 years ago. NC Field is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We leverage our grassroots organizing skills to teach leadership, promote education, and facilitate opportunities for the migrant and seasonal farm worker community in North Carolina. Our efforts are rooted in 3 core messaging pillars in education, leadership, and dignity. And so we do this through professional and personal development opportunities and advocacy efforts to improve farm worker policies, labor practices, and overall quality of life. Our core programs as an organization are Give Food a Face, which is a campaign that focuses on raising awareness about the injustices in the agricultural system. The Farm Worker Emergency Fund, which is a year-round fundraiser that is designed to help farm workers manage immediate emergencies. And our PJC group, which stands for Poder Juvenil Campesino. Our youth group is a group of men and women who are farm workers or children of farm workers who are looking to change their community. So we have, created the opportunity for our farm workers and farm worker kids to be more civically engaged, more socially conscious, and especially engage in issues that directly impact their lives and their families and their livelihoods.
Thank you so much. All right. So Yuliana, tell us a little bit about your role. You are a Levántate Leadership Institute member, and we'd love to hear more about what that means and what you're doing.
Hi, yes, I'm a part of the Levante Student Action with Farmworkers, and it's a program specifically for high school students, specifically for farm worker children. It gives us the opportunity to be able to be involved with our community. We have been able to help raise farm worker awareness. We have made infographics. They also give us the opportunity to be able to receive help with our college process. It's very difficult, especially when we're first generation. We really need that help. So they help us apply for FAFSA. They have helped me go on college tours and give me a ton of information. Something to be more involved with the farm workers. We have done fundraisers and emergency funds for the farm workers who are due to COVID this year. So, did I freeze? Oh, sorry, I'm not sure if I froze. So we were able to raise emergency funds for those families.
Thank you, Juliana. We got everything you said. All right, Jennifer, tell us a little bit more about you and your work.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Jefferson Sanchez. I am a recent Student Action with Farmworkers alumni. I was an intern for their Into the Fields 10-week summer program. So my main job was to be a healthcare intern at the North Carolina Farmworkers Project. And so my main job and role was to help educate farm workers with COVID-19 and also provide materials to them, such as masks and toiletries.
Thank you so much. And Maria, will you tell us more about you and your work?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm the program coordinator at Student Action with Farmworkers. So I help make the 10-week summer program that Jennifer was a part of this summer. Into the Fields is called. And it's just about bringing students and farmworkers together to learn about each other's lives, share resources, and also support students in professional development, leadership development, helping them stay active in the farmworker movement, building lifelong activists and supporters of this work. And during the school year, I also work with a policy intern in our office, and we do a lot of legislative advocacy, supporting tuition equity campaigns in the state, so making education more accessible to undocumented students, and other bills we follow other bills that would protect or harm farm workers and immigrants.
Thank you so much. And I've been seeing some comments popping up about how you are all such inspirations and true heroes and true activists, and I couldn't agree more. And I love both of all three of your organizations so much. But I'd like to call myself an honorary Safista. I'm not sure if that's allowed, but I think I'm gonna, because I think that the work that's being done, really building up the farm worker community members, including youth, is just so critical. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the farm worker community that maybe folks who are tuning in don't know much about. So for those of you who are tuning in who don't have much of a background on farm workers in our country, there are 2 to 3 million farm workers in our nation who pick, pack, and plant the food that we eat. And all of these incredible leaders who are here with us today are doing work on the ground in North Carolina with the farm worker community. And we know that this COVID crisis has been incredibly difficult for the farm worker community. And you each have mentioned some of what you've been doing during this COVID crisis to support the farm worker community, but we'd love to learn a little bit more about sort of how you've been dealing with some of the overall inequities that you've been seeing, not just now during this COVID crisis, but really historically with the farm worker community. And in this COVID crisis, what have been some of the responses on the ground that you think have been most impactful? So let me start with Brittney. Brittney, you talked about sort of NC Field's rapid response, sort of year-long support for farm workers. Could you just talk to us a little bit more about, what is the scene that people need to know about who are tuning in?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, our farm workers are definitely our essential workers. They were not exempt for the state of North Carolina. They didn't have the luxury of being able to be quarantined at home. This was one of the industries where people still had to show up to work and still work, long, hard hours, work outside in the fields, work in manufacturing facilities. And so just to kind of provide some perspective is that if you've been able to eat, fresh foods, fresh vegetables and fruits this entire time and meat, that it was because a farm worker didn't have an opportunity to stay home, and so they had to go to work and they were able to feed you. So where we are located, our primary service areas are kind of what would be considered as food desert areas, and high risk areas with varying social determinants of health. And so where we see a lot of our issues is with transportation, accessibility, especially, and language accessibility. There are over 40 counties in North Carolina that still do not have content in Spanish. And so there's a great discrepancy in information being shared between the farm worker community, which is comprised of primarily Latino people, who may not have a formal education or, speak and read English. And so there's a dependency factor on the younger generation and kids, of being able to take on that burden of translating, providing information and being, the source of information for their families and things. So the biggest impact for us is being able to provide resources. And our resources vary based off the needs. NC Field is pretty unique because we deal with farm workers on a daily basis. We come in contact with farm workers on a daily basis. We're actively conducting COVID testing in partnership with a few other organizations as well. We actually have coordinated in Nash County and Lenoir County, I believe, as well. Lenoir County is our headquarters, that's our home base. But our service areas extend to Wayne, to Nash County, to Lenoir County, to Greene County, any surrounding counties around Lenoir in our service area of Eastern North Carolina, where it's very, 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 very rural. But we're pretty much trying to extend our reach throughout there and provide COVID testing. Our Farm Worker Emergency Fund. So right now we have just launched about a month ago our Farm Worker Pandemic Emergency Fund, in which it is an extension of the Farm Worker Emergency Fund that we have going on year round. But this particular fund is directed to farm workers that have been directly affected by COVID. And we're trying to provide relief and aid and healthcare costs and transportation costs, or any costs that have come up in their experiences just in this past year. Because we still have to sustain, like I said, people still have to go to work. Our farm worker camps are still packed at 100, 200, 300 people. And so we have to make sure that this area is supported and these people are supported so that they can continue to do their work and have a good overall quality of life, for sure.
Thank you, Brittney. And, for those who are tuning in who maybe are unfamiliar with the farm worker community and some of the dynamics that you talked about, Brittney, Angeline, would you share why the farm worker community in North Carolina and around the country has been particularly vulnerable during this COVID crisis?
Yeah, so I think that Brittney really hit the nail on the head with just talking about how it is essential work. So there's not an option of doing it from home. And also the conditions, the labor conditions for workers, there haven't been enough protections in place. And even when there are protections in place, the enforcement in North Carolina is very weak. And so I know that SAF, along with other organizations in the Farm Worker Advocacy Network, has been doing a lot of work to advocate with state officials to get them to hold employers accountable for the conditions in which farm workers are working. And a lot of attention has been paid to meat packing plants, where we have had some really large outbreaks here in North Carolina. And so the challenges are manyfold. So it's folks are having to go to work, and when they're going to work, they're not necessarily getting the PPE or the distancing or the protections that they would need to protect them from COVID. And then also oftentimes when they get sick, the employers are not providing paid leave or other support so that workers can get better in quarantine, or that their family members can quarantine. So it's just the overall conditions really just lend themselves for making this community a lot more vulnerable. And then another factor is that many of the relief programs that do exist have specifically excluded folks based on immigration status. And so if farm workers don't have a social security number, for example, they wouldn't have gotten a stimulus check, or if they haven't been filing their taxes or had access to those resources. And so you see that it's the workers who are the most vulnerable because they're doing work that can't be done in any other way. It can't be put on hold because people have to eat, are not getting the protections that they need. And then if they are getting sick, or if they are losing hours of work, are not getting the economic resources in order to protect and sustain themselves and their families.
Thank you for that overview. And so while we know that there are so many challenges, and there have been so many challenges over time for the farm worker community, we also know that the farm worker community is strong and powerful and resilient and organizing, and really taking matters into our community's own hands to make things better. And Maria, I feel like, in your role at SAF, one of the big things that I think many of us who are part of the farm worker community give thanks to SAF for is organizing Farm Worker Awareness Week every year, and really making sure that farm worker leadership is showcased during that week and certainly around the year. Could you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the ways in which the farm worker community has been organizing during this COVID moment? And, most folks might not realize this, but the timing of the COVID crisis actually fell around this year's National Farm Worker Awareness Week. And sort of how did SAF really take the opportunity to elevate farm worker issues generally in this year's campaign?
Yeah, I think so it's a very complex, issue that farm worker issues really is, and it's very much rooted in this history in our country, and how our country was built. And so with National Farm Worker Awareness Week, at least I believe that a lot of social justice and a lot of social change, positive change, comes through community. And National Farm Worker Awareness Week is an amazing opportunity to do that, because we work with organizations, student groups all across the country. There's so many amazing people that are involved in this work, and a lot of us are also from farm worker families, worked in the fields, worked in packing and processing plants. And so it's not just us doing the work for farm workers, right? It's not us saving them. It's us working with them. It's farm workers fighting for themselves, as we know that farm workers for years have organized themselves, have fought for their own rights. And this year, COVID did hit right before our Farm Worker Awareness Week, and there was a lot planned, and but it's having an in-person event is not more important than keeping yourself safe. And so a lot of groups did different things to work from home, and farm worker issues also live at this weird intersection of all the other issues happening, right? It's not just the labor issues. It's healthcare access. It's women's issues. It's immigration. It's racial disparities. And so we all kind of came together, and in our respective places, as we also adjusted to how we responded to this COVID crisis that started to happen. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of getting out the vote, letter writing, just a lot of mutual aid support, and we created one ourselves for our alumni who come from farm worker families. So a lot of different things that organizations did across the country. It's not just North Carolina organizing, but we're working with all over the country, amazing students and groups.
Thank you. And so that brings me to both Jennifer and Yuliana. So first, it would be wonderful and I think really helpful for those who are listening to this conversation to understand from your perspective, what has been the unique impact of this COVID crisis on farm worker kids? And how have you all been organizing as college students and as youth from farm worker families to fight for the rights of the farm worker community? I'll start with Jennifer.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, I was obviously in school. I live about 3 hours and 30 minutes from home. And so when it first hit, I was obviously sent home as health reasons, security. But then the fear hit, especially since I come from a farm worker family. My parents have been working in these fields for over 20 years. And then the fear set in for them because it was like, well, who's going to be the one, like, are they going to lay us off? Are we going to continue working? And so like my dad, he works in the Christmas tree industry, and he was like, I got to work with other farm workers in close proximity. And he said, what's going to happen? And so as, the pandemic progressed and this whole thing started, along, it set the fear that what happens if my dad brings this virus back home? Like, will my mother, who has, a very low immune system, be affected? Will she get sick? And, it was all these questions running into our mind. But, what I saw from his side was that there was no really safety measures put in place as far as them being protected, wearing masks and stuff, because obviously there wasn't much information out there. And so when I started my internship through SAF and as a healthcare intern, I realized that there is more to helping these farm workers. I saw a whole different side. Like, I saw these farm workers in their camps not being able to social distance. Many of them didn't have access to even a basic mask or even a thermometer, which is a very important component when trying to identify or determine if someone does have COVID. And it was just, problems that we considered minor. It was such a huge problem for them. And so as a healthcare intern, working with the North Carolina Farmworkers Project, they taught us so many lessons. They were like, we needed to wear proper PPE. We need to get these masks out there. Even though we were concerned about our health, we were like, farm workers come first. They're the ones who are out in these fields from the time the sun rises to the time the sun sets. And I mean, we would be out there 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night trying to give them COVID-19 education, trying to give them these basic toiletries and, these masks. And so I realized that through SAF's interaction that had in my life, I realized there's so much more that I need to learn and that I need to advocate. And especially it can start at home. So yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, Yuliana, you talked some at the beginning about some of the actions that the youth were taking, but I think that if you could place that in the context of this COVID crisis, it would be wonderful to hear some of the activations that the youth have been initiating to try to address this issue.
Yeah, and as Jennifer was saying, a lot of families and personally friends and a lot of friends have been impacted with COVID heavily. People were laid off work for some time. Were like stuck. They don't know. They weren't gonna sure what they were gonna how they were gonna put food and all this stuff. Some people have died because of COVID-19, and so we have to help those people, farm worker children, help farm worker families. We have, like I said previously, we have done emergency funds where we provide them with finances to help them sustain them for a while. We have also done food. We have provided food with the Food Farm Worker Ministry. We have been able to give away food banks and stuff like that. And we have also provided funds with Monica's organization, the Justice for Migrant Women. And another thing that we have done, we started doing phone banking. So there was about a week where we dedicated that, and we called people to make sure and check if they were registered for the census or for voter registration, to be able to get to our leaders so they can do something for these farm workers' rights, because some of them have not refused to do anything for them. And like Jennifer was saying, like some of them don't have the proper protection equipment, or they were laid off of work, and all of that we have tried by doing these emergency funds, by being able to raise awareness for this stuff. And I think that a lot of that really has to tie in with being able to vote, because like we want these leaders to pay attention to these people, like these families. Whether it's personal, whether it's in our community, it's very important, because like Brittany was saying, like those are essential workers and we need to protect them as much as possible.
Thank you. And I'm going to put a pin in that conversation about voting, because we're going to go there soon. But I want to ask really quickly, because this is a question that comes up over and over again, and I'm seeing it in our comments in the chat. People want to know, how can we work to keep to hold the employers accountable? Angeline, what are your thoughts on that? What can the consumer do to help call for employer accountability?
Yeah, I know that SAF has supported a lot of boycotts and worker-led efforts throughout the year, both with our local union here, the Farm Labor Organizing Committee, and then with other worker-led efforts like the Coalition of Immokalee Workers and other groups that have been, targeting specific companies, specific employers to hold them accountable for the way that the workers in their food chain are being treated. It definitely can be challenging. I know that through Farm Worker Awareness Week and on SAF's website, the kind of current initiatives are there. I do think that the other thing is very related to what Yuliana was saying, which is elected officials also have a role in this, right? So it's important to hold employers accountable as consumers, but also elected officials, and specifically like our local departments of labor, have a lot of power in terms of even enforcing the rules that are already on the books. And then our state legislators can actually pass rules that will provide more protections for farm workers. Here in North Carolina, it's been very challenging to get any kind of worker protections passed. I know that the Farm Worker Advocacy Network has been working a lot to address housing conditions and other factors that are affecting workers in the field. But so I think it's important to think about it not just as a consumer, but also as a voter or someone who is connected to voters and can influence, particularly during election time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And so let's talk about voting. So, everyone who's tuning in, you all know that we are a nonpartisan organization, but we do care very much about building and exercising our civic power. And so we've talked some here today about calling folks to remind them to register to vote and making sure that people are completing their census. And I'd love to spend some more time talking particularly about building power with and alongside the farm worker community in North Carolina, in light of the fact that we've heard, in recent news, there was an article, in fact, today, CNN talked about how North Carolina is considered, quote, the center of the political universe as the state's demographics have shifted dramatically. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the shift, and also talking about what other projects you're engaging in to make sure that people understand that farm workers should also be thought of when they're thinking about who has power, and in particular, who has political power in the state. So Maria, let's start with you. Can you share a little bit about sort of what SAF is doing on that front? And, and I know people who are watching are asking, how can we help? So what are you all working on, and what are some ways in which folks who are watching can support these efforts?
Yeah. So, of course, voting is extremely important. And we know that about half of the farm workers that are in this country are undocumented. And so they don't have this right to vote. And it's very we're very much directly affected by all the decisions that are made at every level of, where our elected officials are. Especially right now with COVID, and calling on our governor, Department of Labor commissioner, the attorney general to help us, one, enforce the protections that are already in place, but to increase them, as farm workers are exempted from so many labor protections that a lot of us are very privileged to have. So we've been working a lot on getting out the vote to our alumni who are citizens, who are able to vote, to our community members, and also holding our elected officials accountable once they're in office, because it's not just a get out the vote effort. It's a get out the vote so that we can better our communities' lives, we can improve conditions for all. We've been doing phone banking. Our youth have been doing phone banking, our interns as well. We partnered with El Pueblo and other organizations in the state to have a voter registration line, since now in North Carolina we were able to get people registered online. And also a lot of us on staff are doing voter protection, and so working with other organizations that are going out to the polls and just making sure there's no voter intimidation going on, no voter suppression, as it's really North Carolina, you're saying it's at the center of this voting thing going on in this country, but there's a lot of gerrymandering, there's a lot of voter suppression that has been going on for many, many years. So we're actively trying to fight that, and also once people are in office, making sure that they're actively doing their job as they promised us when we were voting for them.
Thank you. And you raised such an important point that I want to kind of highlight, which is this, the power building that's happening isn't just about this election, right? And Angeline, I feel like you touched on that some as well, related to sort of accountability with regards to laws that are on the books and lack of enforcement. And I know, as you said at the beginning, your organization has been working to build power with workers, and She Se Puede is really focused on the leadership of Latinas specifically. And we know that there are about 1 million farm worker women in our country, and many farm worker women in the state of North Carolina. Could you share with us, Angelina, a little bit about sort of what your long-term projects are that relate to creating a healthier democracy, and specifically highlighting the leadership of Latina farm workers?
Yeah, I think that a lot of our work around the political process, we try to design it in a way that everyone can participate, whether you yourself currently have the right to vote. So we've partnered with allies throughout the state to create a bilingual website that has information about the elections. It's called votemosnc.com or .org. And that site is kind of a repository for everything that you'll need to know related to the elections. And it has the information in both English and in Spanish. So you can put in your address there and look up exactly who's going to be on your ballot, and look at nonpartisan answers to questions that we've sent to all the candidates. So it's a completely nonpartisan site that provides information for folks throughout the state about what's going to be on their ballot, because it's not just about the presidential election. That's what gets the most attention right now. But there are very important races all the way from president down to local county commissioner races, and even local positions like soil and water district supervisors that actually have a lot of influence over, the health and wellness of your local community. And so we have been focused on working with other organizations throughout the state. We're based really in an urban area, and so we partner a lot with groups that are in rural areas to provide that information and to help them with their local leadership programs. So I know that Brittney, you were mentioning a lot of the leadership programs that you have, and I wonder if you would want to share more about those in terms of what you're doing in Lenoir County and the surrounding areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. So it's kind of a loaded question because we're doing so much, but to kind of narrow it down to our 3 core programs, what we're doing right now specifically with our PJC youth group, we have taken a focus on civic engagement and civic leadership. Definitely just, there is great opportunity with the upcoming generations to really make an impact on our elections. I think echoing everyone else's sentiment that of course it does not focus, like our focus is not on the presidential election, although it should be. You know, we definitely have to broaden our perspectives to, we are voting in local elections. We are electing, you know, board of commissioners. We are, you know, electing our school board commissioners, and just about every institution that affects us on a local and a personal level. We're also, you know, engaging with them and voting for those people who actually have the power to make those decisions. And a lot of these people are fairly accessible for the most part. And what I mean by that is that, you know, you can reach out to their offices and send emails, and you can send messages. Social media has been a powerful tool for every single one of our organizations of being able to, you know, to connect with our local leaders and voice our opinions and participate in town halls and have collaborative sessions where we're able to have conversations about things that really matter and about the things that we do have the control to change. One thing I do notice is that, like, there's so much that we can advocate for. There's so much that we can, you know, really fight for, because America was founded on such a complex system of oppression and suppression that it's going to take some years and multiple hands and multiple organizations working in tandem to really unravel all of that and establish new institutions that are able to support us in a ways that, you know, as we should be supported. So what we're doing with NC Field, like I said, with PJC, we've been focusing with civic engagement most recently, considering that a majority of our youth group members are coming of age, and this will be the first time that they're voting in an election. So, you know, equipping them with the tools to understand, you know, what it means to be a voter, what it means to be socially and civically conscious, is just kind of been definitely our focuses, but it definitely stems from our core messaging pillars of education, leadership, and dignity, by all means, and just making sure that we provide the correct information. Our kids, I mean, consideration, myself included, you know, we have our phones, we have Google, we have all of the information that we need in the palm of our hand, but a lot of times we don't necessarily do the due diligence to find out what's really happening in the world and really understanding how that affects us. And so we've been providing literacy training. Over the summer, we did a media literacy training with our youth group of, you know, this is the best, like, here are best practices for finding information on the internet. Here are best practices of, you know, finding health information on the internet, especially during a pandemic. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm sure you guys know, there was countless amounts of information that was just being circulated around. And we kept directing people focus on, you know, from information specifically from the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control. You know, we want to focus on we want to highlight the organizations that have the correct and accurate information and that have that credibility to where we can share that out versus, you know, someone on Facebook creating their own remedy for coronavirus. You know, that's not trustworthy, and it's just only perpetuating mis and disinformation. And so again, just unraveling the complex webs of, you know, oppressive systems has really been a main objective of ours. Definitely our Farm Worker Emergency Fund has definitely been very active of just being able to, you know, create buy-in from other organizations and community supporters, because another echoed sentiment is that our farm workers affect just about every aspect of our lives, even though they are on an extreme end of the food supply chain. They're still probably the most important piece to that plan and to that chain. So being able to uplift them and elevate them to a level playing field and equipping them with the resources and the information that they need to be successful and have a great quality of life, or a good quality of life, you know, whatever works best for them, but just making sure that, you know, we have a fair playing field is ultimately what we're trying to do. And then with Give Food a Face, our greatest thing is exactly that. We're giving food a face. We're making that connection from food to your table. You know, once you consume, how did this food get to you? How was this food created? You know, Black and brown people, we are the originators and the original owners of this land that we cultivate, you know, but we're unfortunately some of the greatest disenfranchised populations still to this day in this country and in the state. And so what we're doing is humanizing the spectrum and humanizing this community and their impact for, you know, a myriad of reasons, but ultimately is that we feed you, right? Maybe not me, but I like our farm worker community is that, you know, the farm worker community feeds us, they sustain us. And so what we do, like I said, is personify and humanize these stories and these real accounts of what's really happening out in the field, for sure. But definitely our programs are ad hoc. They're certainly health and wellness focused, because we definitely want to make sure that people are healthy, they have education, and, health extends beyond just personal wellness. It extends to community wellness, social wellness and support. So definitely there's great opportunity. And so I'm probably the only person that doesn't have, SAF relations, or I wasn't a SAF alumni, but definitely, it takes SAF, it takes NC Field, it takes Mujer Rising, it takes Farmworker Justice, it takes all of these organizations to work in tandem to collaborate and really address these issues, for sure.
Thank you so much, Brittany, and I couldn't agree more. And I am so sad because I could be in conversation with all of you all day long. It's been such a great, less than an hour that we've had together, but I feel like you've presented so much important information for everyone who's tuned in. And we have to close, but in closing, I just want to give you all one quick minute to just go around quickly. And how can people help you? Where can they find you? How can people help you? And we're going to do it quickly because they're going to time us out. So Yuliana, you go first.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you rephrase that question one more time?
Sure. So where can people find your organization, and what is something that people can do to help your organization?
Okay, we can be found in Dunn. That's where we're located, but you could find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page that's called Student Action for Farmworkers. We also have an Instagram as well. And I feel like ways that you can help us is by being able to go register to vote, because at the end of the day, like, you're helping our movement, which is to help farm workers. And I feel like that's what's really important. And it's like, of course, you can help in other ways that if you feel like you want to do it, it's like optional. You can probably help donate to like emergency funds that we raise for people that are in need of like money or like food. Like we give those out to farm worker families. So I feel like those are two main ways that we can really help with
Thank
this
you,
community.
Juliana. And Brittany, quickly, could you tell us where people can find you so they can follow along, and what can they do to help?
Yeah, all of our social media handles are NC_field. Definitely follow us, share, like, and subscribe to all of our content, and definitely subscribe to our monthly newsletter. I promise it's one bomb email a month. We're not going to bombard you with a whole bunch of information, but we're definitely going to get you the right information. Our organization website is ncfield.org. There you can learn more about our programs, our organization, and the greatest way to help us is through not only raising our awareness and continuing to share our message and our mission, but also making donations, because not only do we, support ourselves on grants and funding, but it's also through donations through our supporters, and that really continue to, create our longevity. And also our Give Food a Face campaign, you can find at givefoodiface.org as well.
Thank you, Brittany. And Angeline, where can people find El Pueblo?
So El Pueblo is online at elpueblo.org, and then on social media at El Pueblo Inc. or el.pueblo.inc on Instagram. And if you're based in North Carolina, you can go and vote right now. Early voting is underway. And if you haven't registered yet, we do have same-day registration. So if you need to update your registration, early voting is the place to do it. And you can find all the info you want about voting in North Carolina on votemosnc.com.
Thank you.
English
and Maria and Juliana, thank you. And Jennifer, thank you for repping SAF in this conversation. And thank you, Juliana, for sharing the information for where people can find SAF. We really appreciate all of you for your work and for your dedication. Thank you so much for joining us on our She Se Puede Latinas Make a Difference virtual tour. And for those of you who want to find out more about She Se Puede and about the tour, you can go to shesepuede.org/tour for more programming information, and follow us at she_se puede. Thank you all so much for your time.